All right, joining us is ACLU Michigan staff attorney Mark Fancher. He's involved with the Racial Justice Project. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
No, thank you for having me.
So I want to talk about this police extracting information from cell phones during traffic stops. We actually had a segment on the show a couple of months ago, which where we talked about how to handle police asking to look at your cell phone. Tell me a little bit about how this issue first came on your radar. What exactly is it that police are doing during traffic stops?
Well, we heard that the state police might have these cell phone extraction devices in their possession. And we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request essentially for the purpose of confirming that they had them. If they had indicated that they had them, we just wanted to touch base and to confirm that they were using them lawfully. We had a great deal of trouble getting the initial documents just to confirm the existence of the devices. But after we followed up and requested incident reports and logs and other documents which would give us some sense of how they were using them, we ran into a great deal of difficulty, starting with a price tag that was placed on the documents at more than $500,000.
So what I read was that the ACLU of Michigan was asked to pay before you would even get a single document about $272,000, and that my understanding is these costs were not itemized. In other words, you had no idea exactly where were these costs coming from, right?
That's correct. It was an estimate of, it was a purported estimate of what it would cost for them to process it. They did break it down into, I think they said that duplication costs would exceed $100,000 and that the labor cost would be in excess of $400,000. But beyond that, it was not very specific at all.
Where do these? I mean, maybe I'm not smart enough, or I don't know enough about this. But to me, it seems like an incredibly high cost for putting together some documents. Does it not?
It does. I mean, the most that they've ever been able to tell us or to say is that in order for them to find the documents, they have to go through many, many reports over the course of an extended period of time. But to my way of thinking, that amount of money would be enough to run a small nonprofit for about 6 or 7 months. And I don't know that the project is that massive. Also, we followed up over the course of many months after that with a whole series of much more narrow requests, which were directed toward very limited periods of time, 2 weeks, 1 week. And in response to many of those requests, we were told that there were no documents for that period. So if you have so many documents that it's going to cost you more than $100,000 to duplicate them, you would think that we would be running into those documents with every request that we made. So it's either they're not being completely candid with us, or they had one incident on one particular day, which we've not stumbled upon, where they generated thousands of pages of documents in connection with the use of this cell phone extraction device.
So tell me about what do you know about this device? I mean, is it the type of thing where the person who is involved in the traffic stop wouldn't know that the information on their cell phone is being captured? How does this work?
Well, the trooper would have to actually take possession of the cell phone, and once they have it, they would put it into the cell phone extraction device. According to the manufacturer, the entire contents of the cell phone can be extracted within the space of about 90 seconds. So certainly the individual would know if they handed them the cell phone, but what happens within the next 1.5 to 2 minutes, they might not know.
And legally, I mean, what responsibility do the people who are being stopped have to allow the police to even, number one, to hand over their cell phone in a routine traffic stop? What are people's rights in these cases?
Well, the rights are all governed by the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. And the Fourth Amendment was designed specifically to protect the private papers and private matters of individuals. So now cell phones are used so widely, and so many people use them as repositories for their most personal information, passcodes for accounts, social security numbers, and any number of things that they would not want the public to know. And anything that an individual conceals from public view is regarded as private. And law enforcement agencies or any branch of government has no right under the Fourth Amendment to look into those places or to search them unless they've approached a judge and persuaded that judge that there's a need for a warrant, which gives them authority to search those areas.
So in a routine traffic stop where presumably there would not be any warrant, I mean, this would be the first interaction that the individual is having with law enforcement, there is no reason anybody would be compelled to turn over their cell phone as part of a regular traffic stop.
Yes, under the law, that's correct. And if a request is made for the cell phone, the individual is certainly within his or her rights to ask the trooper or the officer if they have a warrant to search. If they say that they do have a warrant, then they are obligated to turn the cell phone over. But in the absence of a warrant, technically, they may not be obligated to turn it over, but it's hard to substitute one's judgment for that of the individual who's facing those situations. And sometimes prudence dictates that even though they're not obligated to turn it over, they may want to turn it over just to preserve their own safety. But if that happens, then it's certainly important for them to take very careful note of every detail of that encounter, the name of the officer, what was said by whom and when, so that if this is challenged at some point in the future, they are able to provide a complete and credible account of how it happened.
I think that's good advice. We've been speaking with Mark Fancher, ACLU of Michigan staff attorney involved with the Racial Justice Project. Thank you again for joining us. We'll keep an eye on this story for sure.
Well, thank you again for having us.